Welcome back. And the topic that's been in the news a lot is America healthy? Well, as you know, that's been a major part of a lot of discussions, out of which we now got a new Secretary of Health. I am delighted to have back with us our good friend Tony Lyons. Tony now is the director of MAHA, Make America Healthy Again Action. He's an attorney and president of Skyhorse Publishing. As the MAHA Action, Tony leads the national campaign to confront the chronic disease epidemic and reform public health policy. As a publisher, he continues to champion a broad range of voices and ideas and books, including the Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Wuhan cover-up, and terrifying bioweapons arms race, just to mention a few. He does have a couple of websites, MAHAaction.com, and then there's skyhorsepublishing.com. There's a picture of both landing pages. His publishing company is pretty remarkable. The real Anthony Fauci, you can get that, the book on RFK Jr., among other ones out there. Tony, good to see you again, friend. How are you, buddy?
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me back.
You bet. So, hey, congratulations on your new role. What drew you to go over there?
Well, you know, I've known Bobby Kennedy for something like 15 years. I've published all of his books, about 14 books, and really feel strongly that his mission is a mission that we all should share, that we need to make this country healthy once again. And if we look all around the world, you know, if you turn on the television and you listen to somebody like Michael Bloomberg or Bernie Sanders, they're going to tell you that things are going great, that people are healthy in this country, and that Bobby Kennedy is a threat to that. But, you know, we all know that health comes from good food, clean air, water, sunlight, and then the absence of toxic exposures. So we've had our children poisoned in this country by the food they eat, by the dyes in those foods, by the drugs and the things in those drugs, by pesticides, by vaccines, by all kinds of things that are delivery mechanisms for toxins. And that has to stop. I mean, we spend 3 times the amount of money on public health as any country in the world, and we have so much worse health outcomes that it's an embarrassment to the company. I mean, to the country. But you know, more than that, it's, you know, these are our children, and we have to protect our children. Nothing could be more important than that.
Beautiful. All right, let me back up and then go forward. I'm trying to figure out, you know, when Bobby Kennedy announced that he was shutting his campaign down and endorsing President Trump, he gave a speech. And that speech was stunning. I still remember it. And I did not know that in the heart and the soul of this man was this passion about health. Where did that come from, Tony?
You know, he's been fighting toxins in all kinds of things and all of the different ways that toxins get into our bodies for the last 40 years. He brought more than 500 lawsuits and became an expert in the science by getting into the details of all those lawsuits. So this has been a passion of his. This has been a profession of his for decades. And he's dedicated his life to making people healthy and to fighting these big corporations who are polluting everything in this country. So we need to change our priorities from profits to public health, to taking care of our own people, which doesn't actually mean that we can't have companies making a lot of money. I mean, in the free market system, companies that make money are companies that do things that are good for the people of this country, that they create products that are actually helpful. So the problem is the corruption in Washington, D.C., that both Donald Trump and Secretary Kennedy are really fighting tooth and nail now. And in a corrupt system, you can create products that harm people, but you don't have to pay for the consequences. So those companies that have had this free ride for the last 20 or 30 years know now that the jig is up, and they're attacking Donald Trump, they're attacking Bobby Kennedy, but they're also attacking all of us, because this is a fight that's important to everybody, to every parent, to every child in this country.
Okay, how bad was the epidemic management and in particular the vaccine's residual effect upon us?
Yeah, so I think that, clearly we had a virus that was created by funding from the US government. And then we had vaccines that we were told would really end this problem that we created. And we were given bad science. So Donald Trump really wanted to do something good for the country. Warp speed was this, this process of solving a problem that he, as an incredible businessman and problem solver, wanted to get done. But he was given bad information. So, the advisors that he had at the time, the scientists that came to him, the manufacturers of the vaccines, they all came to him and they lied to him, just like they lied to the American public. They said that these products worked. They said that they were safe. They said that people couldn't get or transmit COVID if they took them. And what actually happened was that just wasn't true. So many people then took these products and suffered from them and were injured by them. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people were injured by them. And now we're getting the full story finally. And Donald Trump, said 2 days ago that if the vaccine manufacturers have proof that their products were safe and effective, they should give that to us now. Not in 75 years, not in 20 years, not in 1 year, but right now. And I think he understands that he was misled and that now we have to start to really make sure that we have gold standard science, that we have really great research, and that we have total transparency, that the American public has a right to know what they're putting in their own bodies and in their children's bodies.
As a sidebar question, will Dr. Fauci ever be held accountable?
I think that there ought to be a way, and that probably there will be a way to prosecute him. That, that the things that he did were clearly on such a historic level that the American public is going to demand justice. So I don't know what form that justice is going to take, but I think it's coming.
Is it possible that a state could get him, but not the feds?
It's very tough from that sort of perspective. It's hard to know whether his preemptive pardon is actually even valid because, did the president really sign it? Was he misled? Did somebody else do it at the time? So, it's hard to know whether it could be done at the federal level or at the state level or in some other way. But it seems really important that there be justice served.
All right, back to some things here. It appears to me, Tony, that cancer and obesity have been an ongoing epidemic in this country for years. How is RFK addressing that?
Well, he sees that all of these companies, both on the side of delivering toxins to people, that they prioritize the wrong thing, and that then on the healthcare side, these big pharma companies, they have recognized that there's no money, that there's no business model in curing people. So, the business model has been in making people sick, keeping them sick, treating that sickness. So Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, is right behind him on this, and they are working so well together. And they are saying that this model has to change, that our top priority has to be to make Americans healthy, that that's a fundamental problem in this country, that if we don't have healthy people, we can't have a great country. And so I think that everything that's going on now with the presidential fitness test, bringing that back, that's an incredibly important thing, that we should take pride in our health and our fitness, that, canceling $500 million worth of mRNA orders, that was a great move. Getting mercury out of the multi-dose flu vaccine, that's an incredible thing, that there were millions and millions of children that were getting mercury in their brains. Going state by state and getting the states to do things that are harder to do on the federal level, to create this sort of patchwork where states won't let food companies put certain kinds of pesticides or food colorings or too much sugar into foods that they give to children. Those are all a part of the sort of tapestry that's going to pressure these companies to do the right thing. And I think it's working really, really well. And it's an incredible success story so far.
One quick question before I take a break, and you've been talking all around it. Let's just kind of hit it in the head, and that's how big of a problem is Big Pharma?
Big Pharma is a really big problem in all kinds of ways, and they have so much power, and they've used so many lobbyists, and they control the entire mainstream media by pharmaceutical ads on TV and in newspapers and in magazines. So there really needs to be progress made there. But this is an existential battle, and these companies have been just ruthless in their desire to make money, and we have all suffered for it, and that has to end now.
All right, let me take a quick break. Let me say Tony has a couple of websites, MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, Action, MAHAaction.com. There's that website. And then he has his publishing website, Skyhorsepublishing.com. Very successful publishing company. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and an honor to have back with us today Tony Lyons. He's the director of the MAHA, Make America Healthy Again Action. He's also an attorney, and he's president of Skyhorse Publishing, which is a great publishing company that has published some great books. By the way, a couple of websites, MAHAaction.com, and then his publishing company, Skyhorsepublishing.com. A couple of websites there. So, Tony, you hear this a little bit, but not much. What are we going to do to get our pharmaceutical manufacturers out of China and back home where we can actually watch what they're making?
Yeah, that's a great point, because one of the things that's becoming clear is that countries all around the world are creating products that are really dangerous, and they're exporting them to the United States, or they're making drugs in their own countries that they don't give to their own people. And that's true with pesticides too. It's true with herbicides. It's true with all kinds of things, where in China, but in many other places, they would send a product to the United States to be consumed by our people that they wouldn't give to their own people. And that, I think, has to stop. And we need control over the products that we give to all the people in this country, but especially to our children.
They're starting to trace now, as stuff comes from China, that it's laced with fentanyl. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, that just has to stop. And much of this just turns on the corruption that has overtaken Washington, and that this is all about money. It's about making things much cheaper, that these companies can make much more money on. But if you look at Medicare and Medicaid, they're then on the hook for the lifetime of so many people who have chronic diseases that are created by bad drugs, bad pesticides, bad foods, bad vaccines. So, the world is starting to change now, though, that even on the demand side, millions of Americans are just inspired because they're learning more, and they're seeing things that then can't be unseen. So the world is really changing, that people are going back to gyms, they're looking at food labels, they're deciding not to get booster shots, they're deciding not to drug their children. And Bobby Kennedy says this many, many times. He says, there are no Republican or Democratic children. We all have to get together on the issue of protecting our children's health. So, I mean, we can have all these newspapers, all these magazines, all these mainstream TV shows saying that the world was great, that public health has been great. But any rational person looks at the fact that we've spent so much more money than any other country on the planet for these terrible health outcomes, and that we need to change that now. So one of the big problems that we've had is that we can't get good information, not from the government in the past, not from the media. So we at MAHA Action are trying to create our own media hub. And I would love to tell you all about that. It's a fascinating program.
Yes, let me ask you one more question. We'll come back to that. What are the procedures of abolishing some of these bad drugs, additives? How do you get them abolished?
Yeah, so there's a process, that many of the chemicals. So, for example, U.S. food has 10,000 chemicals in it, whereas all around Europe they have 400. So, you go to a McDonald's in London or in Paris, and the food is much, much healthier. So we need political action. I mean, we need our politicians to stop allowing this to happen. And so to have somebody like Bobby Kennedy, in a position, which he says, he thanks Donald Trump from the bottom of his heart because he says he prayed for 19 years to have the opportunity to actually do this work, which is, really God's work, not for money, not for power, not for fame, but to protect the American people, to protect children. And I think we now have people at HHS who are going to fight day and night, tooth and nail, to change all of these laws, to change all of these rules, and to incentivize companies to do the right thing. It's not about trying to prevent them from making money, but it's stopping to protect them from their corruption. That we've had a system that protects companies that do the wrong thing because they donate money, because they have powerful lobbyists, because they control media. And we need to create a system where people get a benefit from doing the right thing, from helping people, from creating products that are good for you.
Okay, so what's the action plan for MAHA Action?
So we're having a weekly call now that has 10 really well-known people, some of them from the government, some of them from companies, and some of them, who are influencers with big followings. And then we're having something like 3,000 or 4,000 people on those calls who are all influencers themselves. And so between all the people on those calls that are getting action steps and things to repost, we have a group of people who have something like 300 million followers. So there's some duplication there, but it is hundreds of millions of people are going to get the truth, are going to have lies exposed for them so that they know what's really going on, so that the fake news that's put out there by the mainstream media that is really corporate news, and that the corporate science is exposed, and that people then have the information that's necessary to make good decisions for themselves and for their families.
It appears America is waking up to just how bad things have become, which is a good sign. And to your point earlier, where the food may be healthier in Europe than here, I think one of the biggest ones we saw was the additives of ketchup in Europe versus here. And when you see that, it is kind of staggering. And you kind of wonder now, is the American people, and to your point, is the American mom waking up to the fact that their kids have been targeted with bad health?
So I think people all around the country are recognizing that they've been lied to, and that there's been just incredible propaganda campaigns. And I would say to them that they shouldn't blame themselves. That it's really not their fault, that they were tricked, they were lied to, they were subjected, like I said, to incredible propaganda. But now we have the opportunity to turn this all back, to get back to a point where we can use the great science that's coming out, the most modern methods, and really begin to create a system that helps us be the healthiest people on the planet, so that we're a beacon of hope to the planet rather than the disgrace, rather than at the bottom of all of the lists when it comes to longevity or chronic disease or cancers and allergies and autism and all of those things. That we should be ashamed of that as a country, and we should be so grateful for President Trump and for Secretary Kennedy, who he has empowered to turn this around. and he has said, we need to turn around the chronic disease epidemic in this country, and we need to do it now.
You've called it once in a generation opportunity. Is that right?
It definitely is. And if it's not done now, I don't know when it will be done. I mean, we have so many sick children. I mean, almost, half of our population are obese, have some kind of chronic disease. I mean, we are really a poisoned people. And this is the time to turn it around, and it has to be now. And so I think that the entire country is beginning to recognize that. And the attacks that we see day after day, you can read in the New York Times almost every day now, some kind of hit piece on somebody who's either at HHS or somebody working with Donald Trump or Bobby Kennedy himself, all kinds of people in the orbit who are trying to make Americans healthy, they get attacked. And that attack shows you something. It shows that they're afraid, that they see that we're winning, and they see, they're really starting to see that no amount of money is going to convince the American public of things that they can see themselves aren't true.
What is it about good health they don't like?
It's not that they care whether people are healthy or unhealthy. It's that they just want to make as much money as they can make. And that we've had a government in place, we've had a system in place that protects this disgusting money machine. Whether it's pharmaceutical companies or big agricultural companies or big food companies, these companies and the people running them have lost their way. And these are companies that have been okay, that have been willing to poison the American public. And like I said, we need to create a system where the good players, the good actors, the people really fighting to do the right thing, get an incentive from the government to help our people, to bring products to our nation that are going to improve public health. And I think that's possible. And I think it's starting to happen now. And it's only been about 6 months, but I think you see all the signs that President Trump and Secretary Kennedy are winning. And that, part of that, once again, is that they get attacked day after day. But the attacks are getting to be pathetic, that they're saying that, better nutrition in schools is somehow dangerous. Less toxins in drugs or in vaccines or in pesticides is dangerous. So I think we can put up with those kinds of dangers, that we've given the so-called experts the opportunity to do something good with all the money and all the power they have. And they failed the American public, and Americans voted for change, and they're getting it now. And I think once they begin to see the impact of that, they're going to be so incredibly grateful for it.
I got 1 minute left. Let me ask you this. It's one thing to outlaw something. It's another thing to create a new standard. Where are you in the process?
Yeah, so I don't think that, Bobby Kennedy wants to ban things. What he wants to do is make sure the American public has good access to information. So if people want to take vaccines, they should be allowed to. If companies want to produce them, they should be, entitled to it. If people want to create food that isn't healthy, that's fine. But we need the American public to have the awareness so that they can make rational decisions and not just be trapped in this web of lies, corruption, and propaganda.
All right, check out the website, MAHA, MAHAaction.com. That's the Action website, and then his publishing website, Skyhorsepublishing.com. Tony, you're a delight, friend. Thank you so much. God bless you. Stay in the fight, and let's stay connected.
Thanks so much for having me.
Good to see you.